Okay. I'm waiting for some big news this morning or anything. Something. There's not much to talk about. Tonight's games: Boston, Detroit, Vancouver, Calgary, Florida, Dallas, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Colorado, Minnesota, Toronto, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, the Rangers and the Islanders, Nashville, Tampa, Anaheim, Arizona, Golden Knights, and San Jose. So there's going to be a lot to talk about tonight after the games are done. But for right now, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Um, so let's discuss something that's been in the news and it's all over. I keep seeing people talk about it. I even had somebody ask me to talk about it. So every 12 or 13 years, in this case it's been 12, because the 63, I think it's the 63-64 Montreal Canadiens take up two spots on the Stanley Cup. They're removing a ring from the cup. And it's kind of what happens. The interesting thing to me is I think this is the third ring they've removed from the cup that's going to be taken to the Hockey Hall of Fame. You can almost build yourself a brand new Stanley Cup with that. That would be fun if when they get enough rings for it, make your own Stanley Cup. But I'll be long gone by the time that would happen. Now, I don't have a problem with it, and it's funny because I've seen people are all up in arms like, "Oh, Gordie Howe's name is going to come off the Stanley Cup. This is awful." You don't. You haven't seen this. Have you seen this? Do you look exactly for? Because it'll still be in the Hall of Fame. It's not like they're throwing it in a fire and they're destroying it. So, and they ask Hall of Famers, and Hall of Famers like, "Yeah, we love it." Well, what else are they gonna say? Really, it's a weird thing that the media's like, "What do you think of your name getting taken off the cup?" They're not just gonna fall and curl up in the fetal position and start crying over it. Geez, they don't. To quote Jeremy Roenick, "I made my money." So I mean, I don't really think it's a big deal. And the way that it works with the Stanley Cup, if you made the Stanley Cup bigger, you guys wouldn't be able to carry it anymore. It's 34 and a half pounds, but it's the weight and the size is perfect for guys to carry it after they win it. You add another ring to that and you make it that much wider and that much heavier, it there's no way. You can't do it. Patrice Bergeron is practicing, has been on skates, and is apparently intensifying his workouts, but there's no timeline yet for him coming back. They want to see him in preseason action, but their target date for sure to get him back is the start of the hockey season, October 3rd. The reason that kind of sticks with me is that Bergeron is at that stage where I think he's played a lot of hockey, and he got injured a few times last year. Now he's still fighting stuff going into this season. He's at that stage where you can't rely on 80 games out of him. You may not be able to get 70 games out of him either. So I'm glad the Bruins have some guys right now that look like they could step up and be that next guy, because I don't know how much longer Patrice Bergeron's going to be able to play at his level, and how much longer he's going to be able to play anywhere near a full season. And I also wanted to touch on agent Louis Gross, or to Leaf fans right now, he's the devil. He is, of course, William Nylander's agent. It's amazing how agents get vilified. Agents get vilified almost as much as Gary Bettman. An agent's job is simple. So for him, he's got William Nylander. The Leafs want to sign him long term. He wants to sign there long term. Agents get a cut. He's just trying to maximize his return. Now, sometimes an agent will play this game of chicken and end up making less money, but that's rare. Usually a team will get a little bit more desperate, and at least the negotiations continue, and that final price that a player will make a team pay may be higher. Now, I feel bad for Nylander on some level, because he's still practicing in Sweden. He's holding out. And it's interesting because what this does is it sheds light on something I said earlier this summer, something a lot of people have been asking this summer. How in the world are the Leafs going to be able to afford to keep all these guys? And Kyle Dubas came out and said, "We can and we will. That's it. It's going to happen. We're going to keep everybody together. We promised Tavares we're going to keep everybody together. It's not a problem." And while that may seem like it's an admirable answer, to me, I hear a rookie GM. I hear a general manager who's saying something that he really can't back up, and and I'm gonna put it this way. Leaf fans get upset when I talk about, like, well, we can keep everybody together. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that every player is different, every agent is different, and you're going to have agents that play hardball like this. Most of them do. Uh, there's there are some agents who are just fantastic for owners and general managers, but I would think they're few and far between. You want to look at an agent if you're a player and see a guy who gets their players paid. You want to see the guy who's going to make you the most money. So if this guy got a lot of money for Johnny Gaudreau and Torrey Krug, he's good enough for you too. That's the idea. That's where Nylander's head was likely at the time he picks him, or at the time that all this went down. Um, and it's interesting because you will see players switch agents sometimes during negotiations, and Nylander may very well at some point do that. William Nylander may very well, if this drags on, dismiss Gross and move on to somebody else. If and you can do that for two reasons. One is because you're tired of holding out. Two, you can see a relationship between your general manager and your agent that is not salvageable, and you just want to just help that process along. You want to get back to playing hockey. You don't want to be dealing with all the politics. But at the end of the day, we are less than a year out from Marner and Matthews being up, and we don't know what they're going to demand. We know there's been talks between Matt Matthews and the Leafs, but they haven't come out and said anything yet. So until everybody is signed, there's no guarantee one way or the other. And I'm not trying to say that the Leafs are going to have to tear everything down or they're going to have to move players out of their core. I just think that with where the salary cap's been and where it's going, that there are going to be other teams who may be in a better position to put together a Stanley Cup winning roster than where the Maple Leafs may find themselves, because they may have too much money tied up in too few players. And that is an issue. That's an issue that happened with Chicago. As soon as that $10.5 million a year kicked in for Kane and Taves, things got a lot more difficult for Chicago. And they've got other contracts that are iffy too. But the Leafs, like Gardner's up at the end of this year, and for Leaf fans who say, oh well, we'll just let him go, where does the offense come from? I know Gardner can be a disaster defensively, but then where do the points come from? You have to replace that offense too. You have to replace his performance in other areas of the game. So it's tricky. It's a balancing act, and it is not easy to do it, because if it was just something simple, we wouldn't see teams in cap trouble who have smart general managers. And that does happen, where a smart general manager will find himself at or over the cap because the team performs well, which is the other problem that Leaf fans won't be used to, is they'll hear a demand from a player and they'll go, well, he's not worth that. And the reason that he'll demand it is because the team did really, really well, and he feels that he played a significant enough role that he deserves that much more money. If Nylander's agent is actually using Draisaitl as a comparable, that's weird, because offensively Draisaitl I think is the better player, and I also think as a center, I think there's more potential with Draisaitl than there is with Nylander. Nylander may eventually become a very good center in the league. He's played center at various points in his career before. It's just the Leafs use him on the wing. But you can't really negotiate from the point of view of, well, he will become a center at some point. So, and centers are more valuable than wingers. You look anytime there's a draft, wingers will get drafted usually later than centers. This past draft, for instance, you saw centers starting to get drafted earlier than was expected, because centers have more value to a GM than a right wing or left wing. So we'll see what happens and where it ends up. But when I see fans complaining about the agent, I've seen it before. I've seen fans complain about plenty of agents, and it's easy enough. And again, it's much like Bettman's out there as the commissioner, so that he's the face of the league, so that you don't hate all the owners so much. So the owners kind of put him out there like, okay, they can boo you, so that takes some of the heat off of us. To some extent, an agent is willing to be that shock absorber for the player, so that the player doesn't get all the hate and get treated like he's the one that's greedy. When we don't know. We don't know if Nylander sat down and told his agent, I think I'm worth the same amount as that player, which he may very well have said, or if the agent said, I think you're worth as much as that player. We won't know. But either way, they've got their heels dug in right now, and it's the one restricted free agent that's still out there that's a huge star in the making, potentially. And that's the thing, too. What is Nylander's ceiling? He may have a different view on that than the Leafs do. The Leafs may say, look, you're a 60-point player. He may say, yeah, but I'm going to be scoring 80 as soon as maybe this year. So I'm not going to take $6 million because I know I can put up 80 points. Or his agent may be saying it. And that's the dicey part of all of it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.